So this is a tough one because I'm trying to maintain some consistency, but this is really pushing me towards the edge. So what do we have? Well, we have AMC Interview with the Vampire, but if you know the novel as well as the movie, they've changed a lot. I do mean a whole lot. So let's get to the central thing, which is, of course, Jacob Anderson. And right off the bat, I don't think he's a particularly good actor. I didn't really like him that much in Game of Thrones, but I recognize the plot importance of the character. But even as a person, I don't like him either because he helped destroy the show. So that's a pretty big deficit. And this kind of verifies he's just not very compelling as an actor. So him being the main protagonist is like probably not a good choice. In of itself, doing a race swap I think is always tricky. Here it's particularly problematic, but they're changing a lot of other details to try to answer the question. And I think that probably wasn't a good idea. But if you are going to do this, you should probably maintain fidelity to a few more things. But nope, they've pretty much changed almost everything. So now instead of very colonial America, I mean, putting America in quotes, America has changed politically and geographically. So he's no longer a plantation owner, but he's running a brothel. And the way he meets Lestat and a few other details seem totally different as well. So instead of plantation owner, he's running a brothel, and Lestat picks up an interest because apparently he's just very gay. And that's not me reading into this. That's there. They're making it very explicit. And you can kind of consider that progression in terms of the politics, I guess. But again, I'll just say it. I prefer the movie that was way more subtle. They did touch upon those subjects, but they did it with a lot more care and attention. Here, it's kind of just being very forced and explicit. But I want to play fair, and I kind of guess who Claudia is, and they've changed her too. But to be fair, in the trailer itself, we don't know who Claudia is. They aren't explicit on that. They're just explicit with Louis and with Lestat. And to be fair to the Lestat actor, he's more of a question mark for me. I just do think the movie adaptation was way more superior, and there Lestat is fairly evil. We do understand his evil, and he does evolve. He's not just like a cartoon villain. Here they're going with the route of he's offering a choice, and I don't think that's the right decision. For the most part, this trailer is not working for me. But there are strong points. I think the costumes, especially, are very well done. The locations are a little iffy. Again, I recognize they have a constrained budget. They can't just go to France, do French locations. They can't hire people like Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt. They just cost too much. They're kind of stuck. They need a recognizable star. He is kind of a star from a fantasy series. This is also a fantasy series. And again, being the most fair, Anne Rice is a very postmodern writer. She's a very religious writer, but she was very pro gay. She's also very liberal, and apparently she gave her blessing to this. But again, even if you could be a hardcore Anne Rice person and pull from the novels to say this is faithful, I have to just be honest. I would say this is a rare case where the movie adaptation may be better than the source material. It was already going to come in with a big loss because Interview with a Vampire in the 1990s to me is such a great film. It's really that rare case where it's an 8.5 to a 9 out of 10. So it's near perfect. There really isn't much you can improve upon that. There are a few nitpicks. I would have preferred a longer cut and a longer version that answers a few more questions, but overall, yeah, it's pretty strong stuff almost all around, from performances to locations to set designs to the mythology. Virtually everything is like really insanely good. Just compared to that, this is a huge drop off. And the changes, both political and aesthetic, don't really work for me that much. And I just don't think the central performance is going to be all that good. And coupled with his frankly ugly role with Game of Thrones, it's just very disappointing. Unlike others, I'll try to be open minded. I will give a few of the episodes a chance, but from a kind of Neil Jordan perspective, I don't really like this. I have read a little bit of Anne Rice. I guess you could say this does play within her wheelhouse of kind of postmodernism and irony, because this isn't a classical myth. This isn't a classical writer. This is not J.R.R. Tolkien. this is not an attempt to create a kind of rigorous vampire myth. It is a very romantic, very ironic, very postmodern look at being a vampire in quote the modern world. But there are just so many things I think they just got wrong or just changed for no reason. Not even the past. They're changing the past. Okay, fine, whatever. Even in the future, they've got a journalist in our time. Why? There's just a lot of arbitrary changes, and they don't seem well rooted in an interesting story. It just feels like maybe superficially good fan fiction, but I don't know. It just feels very weak compared to the film. That you hoped had a sequel, and they kept going with the story. This one, I'm already kind of burnt out already, but there are some good aspects visually and aesthetically. But overall, it's still fairly weak. I'm going to give it a 6.5. I can't say don't watch it. You have to make your own choice, but I would say I am thoroughly not interested in looking at this. But I will have to review it, but I don't want to. It's kind of an L for me, but maybe it'll work for some people.